So I've been using Anchor for over a year now, and it's one of the easiest ways to make a podcast. It's free, and there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership if you want to or wish to. And it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And if you want to make a podcast, you can go to anchor.fm to get started. And it is very easy to do to make a podcast on there. And you have unlimited data memory on there as well. I would recommend using Anchor to make a podcast. Hi, I am Jennifer Purcell, and welcome to my podcast, Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, where we will discuss, discover, and learn more about the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD and other learning challenges. I do have a website for this podcast, and it is called livingwithnld.com. I also have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account for the podcast. They are all under the same name, which is Living with NLD. I also have a YouTube channel for the podcast, which can be found by Googling the title of the podcast, which is Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge. I would like to tell you about a nonprofit that I use for my research for this podcast. It is called the NLD Project, and I use their blog for my research. They are a nonprofit that is based in New York and is trying to get NVLD back on the DSM, and they provide many resources for people with NVLD on their website. I'll provide you with the website for them in the podcast description. All proceeds from the ads on this podcast will be donated towards the NVLD project. Please feel free to explore the other topics on the podcast, and hopefully you will learn something new from them. I hope you enjoy today's episodes. So I would also like to thank the NVLD Project for the Welcome Ambassador package that they sent me this week. It contained a NVLD water bottle that has their logo on it and says "Count Me In," and has their website, which is nvld.org, on there, and it had a little canvas bag tote that is reusable, which I love reusable things, and it had their logo on the outside of that as well. It had another t-shirt for them, and then it had a little fold-out pop-up thing that was paper that had each of their NVLD hands with their logo, the orange, the red, the pink, the turquoise, and the purple, I think was the other color, and just explain what NVLD is, and also their mission with NVLD, and some other things that they do. And actually, I would like to take some time to read that to you because I thought that was very well done. So underneath what NVLD is, it says people with NVLD or nonverbal learning disability struggle with a range of conditions that include social and spatial disabilities. Often they are marginalized and isolated. Consequently, they can experience social barriers throughout their lives. That was the pink hand. And then the turquoise one, Founder's Inspiration. The NVLD project was inspired by my daughter, who was diagnosed with nonverbal learning disability at the age of 5. My daughter's unwavering determination and courage inspired me to create a supportive and inclusive community to help children, adolescents, and adults with NVLD. That's from the founder of the NVLD project, Laura Lemmy, who has a PhD. The purple hand, the NVLD project. The NVLD project envisions a world where those with nonverbal learning disability can receive a helping hand live their lives to the fullest and are free of any stigmatization. Our main goal is to secure an official diagnosis for NBLD, specifically to gain recognition for its as a valid disorder in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM. At the NBLD Project, we are dedicated to raising awareness and funds so that those who have NBLD are understood and counted in on life. We accomplish this through a variety of programs, including educational workshops, expert research, and ongoing advocacy. And the orange hand, help a help change a life, donate. Can the NBLD Project count on you? Please support our efforts to create helpful challenge, helpful solutions for children and adults with nonverbal learning disability. To donate or learn more, please visit www.nbld.org or contact us, the NBLD Project, 177 East 87th Street, Suite 501 in New York, New York, 10128. And their phone number 212-257-4906. I'll also put that in the podcast description for you, and I'll put the link to their website in there as well. But I thought that little pop out, and I say it's a pop out because it unfolds, was very well done, and it just describes what they do and who they are, and what they try to do for people with NBLD. And I say try because sometimes it can be hard to do things for people with NBLD depending on what it is and where you live and what you're trying to accomplish. Like I know with the DSM piece, I think they've been working on that for a while, and it was in the DSM originally, but it was taken out because there was no one agreed upon definition of NLD, and they think it will be back in the DSM in a couple years, which will be really good because then more people can get help. So thank you, NBLD Project, for the package that you sent me for being an ambassador, or becoming an ambassador, I should say. And I look forward to working with you guys. Thanks.
To access the testimonials, there are two ways. There's a testimonial page with the full quotes, and then there is a slideshow on the home page with excerpts of the longer ones and the short ones. On the last image of the testimonial quote with Julia's quote, you can click on it and it will take you to the testimonial page where it shows you all of them with the full quoted testimonials. I did it that way because I wanted it to be easier to read on the home page, since some of them were a little longer than a testimonial usually is. And then I wanted to make sure that you could see the whole testimonial on the testimonial page. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, you can email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com and I will try to show you how to access it. Thank you. Hope you're having a good weekend. Bye.
Hi. So the next Facebook chat for the podcast family members who have NLD and other learning challenges will be on December 18th, which is the third Saturday of that month. And it will be at 10 a.m. Pacific time zone. And it usually goes until 11:30 a.m. Pacific time zone. And that group is meant to be a safe space for people to talk about challenges that they may be going through because of the learning challenge that they have or other issues. And it doesn't have to be related to their learning challenge, but it can be. And there's confidentiality built into that group, so we do not share what is in that group outside of that group without asking people in that group first before doing so. for permission, I mean. And we do that because we want to respect those people's wishes about sharing their private information, of course. And that group again is on December 18th from 10 a.m. Pacific time zone to 11:30 a.m. Pacific time zone. And I hope to see you there. If you would like to come, please email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com, or you can also message me on Facebook or Instagram on my page, Living with NLD. Thank you. So, happy holidays and happy belated Thanksgiving. Today we are going to be talking about NLD and memories. Do you ever have challenges with your memories, remembering why you went from one room to the next? How about remembering ones from long ago, meaning long-term memory, or what you ate yesterday? I know I do sometimes. This could be from having NLD, or maybe you're neurotypical and have memory issues or lapses. For me, this can sometimes be because of NLD or because of my chronic migraines making my brain fuzzy. Not sure what it's like for you. I also know that when I used to suppress my emotions too much, I couldn't remember what was going on around me because I was trying so hard to forget the bad things that were happening to me. I did this a lot when my cousin was sexually abusing me. Sorry if that triggers anything for the audience listening to this. This is why it's often sad for me to think of my childhood because I can't remember what it was like to be anything younger than 4, maybe 6. And if I try to, it's clouded by negative memories of what my cousin did to me for basically 6 years. What I'm saying is that I think I don't remember anything younger than the age 8, maybe, or 4 years old. I'm so glad I told my mom about the abuse when I was 12 years old. It was one of the hardest things I've done in my life, but also one of the best things. Blessing in disguise. It was one of the times I decided to become my hero and have been that way ever since I took my shovel back by disclosing to my mom about my trauma and abuse. I took back my power and life. If you want to know more about that experience, you can go to episode 20 on the podcast where I talk about that for the first time on the podcast. This relates to memories because after I did that, I let myself express my emotions freely and anytime I wanted to. I didn't suppress them anymore. It was liberating and still is. I can be who I want to be and remember more of my memories because I'm in control of my life and my power, and no one can take that away from me ever again, as long as I don't let them. Yes, I have had 6 years of therapy for this and am going through my seventh one currently. Therapy can change who someone was into a completely different person. I was conned by someone before I started this podcast and decided to fight back by becoming a completely better version of myself. It took me a while to do this, but I did it by being more honest, not only with the ones that I love the most, my family and friends, but also with myself. This also relates to memory because if you trust yourself, it's easier to retain who you are, your personality, and what you're meant to do in life. If you want to learn more about this time in my life, please go to episode 20, like I said earlier, and the interview with Christina Cummings that I uploaded recently. Here's an article about 3 different kinds of memories. It is titled Long Term Memory, Episodic, Somatic, and Implicit, posted on September 8th, 2017 by Peter Flom, who has a PhD. Quote, there are different ways to divide up the idea of memory. One method is to divide it into implicit and explicit memory, and to further divide explicit memory into episodic and somatic memory. My memory varies a lot over these three types. I think this is probably a part of NLD. Implicit memory is stuff that we acquire without conscious thought, how to tie our shoes or drive a car, for instance. Explicit memory is, as I noted, divided into episodic memory and somatic memory. Episodic memory is autobiographical, memories of what things we did, who we did them with, how old we were when we did them, and so on. Somatic memory is memory for facts, words, and so on. My implicit memory is well below average. My episodic memory is very low, but my somatic memory is very good. I wonder if this is similar for others with NLD. Let me know in the comments. End quote. I did quote that whole article there because it was short, and I felt like it was pretty good at describing different kinds of memories, and really cool how the person who wrote it has NLD and was describing the different kinds of memories and how that relates to his memory. So, what I took from that, my implicit memory is okay, I can drive, but I don't like it because of my migraines and how that affects driving sometimes. When I have a bad migraine, even if I'm not nauseous, I don't feel comfortable driving because of that. Um, and if I am nauseous and I have a bad migraine, I don't like driving. Um, and I can tie my shoes, but I prefer to have shoes that I don't need to tie. Basically, without shoelaces, or ones that you can just pull up the shoelace instead of tying it, called quick laces. I can also type well, but not fast, at least not super fast. My episodic memory is good depending on the memory, who was in it, surroundings, and when it was. Also, how old I was in that memory. Got a little tongue-tied. My semantic memory is good. I can remember random facts, numbers, dates, names, and words well. Maybe that's why I'm good with technology and teaching myself how to do more skills with it. One thing I recently taught myself was how to install a new machine we got at work. We got a new mail machine for weighing envelopes and putting stamps on it. And I was able to set it up for us without that much help. There were instructions for setting it up, but I followed the instructions and I was able to set it up. That was pretty cool. But what I have noticed recently is that I also talked about auditory, visual, and kinesthetic memory before in the podcast. These vary in degree of strength for people with NLD. I have a very strong auditory memory, and my next strongest is kinesthetic. My weakest is visual. But what I have noticed recently is that sometimes I can remember better with visual if it's combined with auditory or kinesthetic, because those are my strengths. An example of that would be like when I'm driving, and a visual part of driving is remembering landmarks. And I can remember landmarks well, and maybe that's because when I'm driving, that's kinesthetic. And audio is also impacted with driving when you have noises. So I think that's where it's easier for me there. And there's a song that I want to share with you that I love listening to and still love listening to, that I think is a good inspiration for people with NLD. It's called I Learn and I Forget by Daniel Namod. For me, this reminds me about NLD because I feel like I often have to relearn many things because of having NLD. And sometimes I relearn in a different way than I did in the previous time. This is also true for when I try to tackle challenges. Often you have to be willing to tackle them in more than one way so that you can succeed in making your life easier. I also feel like I often make the same mistakes with NLD challenges until I learn how to tackle them better or understand how to get after them better and keep after them. It's not easy to have any learning challenges, especially the invisible ones like NLD, autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, Asperger's, or OCD. I hope that this podcast is an inspiration to you, especially if you have NLD or any other learning challenges, or if you are someone who has it or if you know someone who has it and loves them very much. As I'm going to quote a character from a show called Flash. I don't know if you watch that show, but it's on Netflix, and one of the characters in that show is called, well, she was called Killer Frost in the beginning, but now she's just called Frost. And something that she said is different is here to stay, and there is no cure for it. We are here to stay. And that quote inspired me because I am different and I'm not going anywhere. And like Frost said, I'm here to stay. And I know she was talking about metahumans because that's who she is in that show, but it can be applied to people with learning challenges and people of other ethnicities and with other identities as well. And we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to stay here and we're going to fight for who we are and what we believe in and what we need and the rights we need to have and what we want to have for a better life. As I wrap up, please comment on this episode and answer this question. What do you struggle with in regards to memory? You can comment whether you have NLD or not. Also, you can comment on YouTube or the website, and you can also email me at livingwithnld@gmail.com. Hope you learned something new. Talk to you next Friday. Happy holidays. As I wrap up, there are some things I would like to share with you, my audience. Please know that just because I have a podcast doesn't mean that I'm perfect in every way and don't make mistakes. I make them every day and try to learn from them. I hope that this podcast helps you feel included, not alone, inspired, safe, and encouraged to make your life a little easier for you every day or chance you have the opportunity to. I would like to hear from you, especially if you have topics that you would like to know more about relating to NLD. I know I'm not an expert, but I do know I have the living experience of having it. Also, please email me if you would want to be interviewed on this podcast or if you need support with something related to NLD. I'm always happy to help in any way I can. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will talk to you next Friday. Bye.